Hello, everybody, and welcome. I will wait a few seconds for people to join. I'm expecting quite a few people to join today, so I'll just hold on a few seconds before I dive in. So hello and welcome. So I'm actually streaming through the LinkedIn event. So I'm not sure whether how it's gone out. So I'm just going to take a quick look to make sure that it is actually streaming on LinkedIn. Let's have a look. Yes, it is. LinkedIn event. So I'm not sure whether it has. So hello and welcome to Tips to Tackle Imposter Syndrome for Introverted Women Leaders. Streaming live here on LinkedIn and also in the High Achieving Introverted Women Facebook group. So anybody that is joining, do type in the comments and let me know where you are joining from. And if you're on the replay, you're watching it on replay, then please do share it in the comments as well, because I do read the comments after. I do like to know who is watching and where you are watching from. So it's reported that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some time. And this was reported in the Psychology's website. And it's something that I see regularly with the women that I coach, with the women who attend my webinars, workshops as well. And when I do my monthly webinar, the number one strategy introverted women use to accelerate their senior leaders, impacted influencers, senior leaders, I do a poll, and invariably 90% plus say that they experience it. And it's not just women who experience it, men experience it as well. And so do extroverted people, because it's not just unique to introverted women. There are many men, women, introverts, extroverts, ambiverts who experience it as well. And I think that because it's something that doesn't get talked about openly, we hear a lot about imposter syndrome, but because we don't often hear senior leaders talking about their experience of it, that means that it's a bit of a taboo topic. There's a bit of a stigma attached to it. And I do believe that if leaders, senior leaders, were a bit more open about experiencing it, it would remove some of that stigma. And yes, you can understand why people may not necessarily want to talk about experiencing it, because they may feel that that then makes people lose confidence in them. But because it is such a wide issue, because it is experienced by so many people, I do believe that if it was talked about more openly, it would remove some of the stigma, making it easy for people to get the support they need to address it, or to not let it have so much of a hold over them and what it is that they're doing. So let's have a look. We've got some comments here. We've got Veronica from the UK. We've got Trine from Denmark. Hello there. It's good to have you here. And so I'm going to be covering today some techniques that you can use to tackle imposter syndrome. And I'm going to talk about what it is and why we experience it. And I'm going to be sharing my own personal experience of having experienced it, because I'm not immune from it either. And I'll be sharing also experience of a client of mine. And through sharing these experiences, we're sharing the techniques that we use to address it, so that you can hopefully then go and apply these techniques and do it for yourself, so that you can manage the imposter syndrome. And also, if you need further support, I'll direct you where you can go for help. And so for those of you that don't know me, I'm Carol Stewart. I'm an executive career leadership coach, founder of The Bounding Solutions, and author of Quietly Visible. And I specialize in introverted women who are senior leaders. And I coach women who are in senior leadership positions, who are new to board positions or reporting into the boardroom, to lead with confidence, influence, and impact. And so what is imposter syndrome? What is it? It's a pervasive form of self-doubt. It's an insecurity and an incompetence, despite evidence to show that you are skilled and successful. And you may feel like a fraud and believe that you're going to get found out and that you're not good enough or that you're not skilled enough. It's common amongst high achievers, people who are high achieving. It's quite common. And it often goes hand in hand with perfectionism. And I often get clients who are very senior women who experience it, and they put a lot of pressure on themselves in terms of wanting things to be perfect, and also for themselves to be perfect as well, in that they often pursue lots of qualifications when it's not really necessary, but because they're wanting to be perfect. So looking at where it comes from, and if you understand where it comes from, it makes it easier for you to then address it yourself. So the early researchers who coined the term imposter phenomenon, Clancy and Imes, they identified two typical scenarios where it stemmed from. And this came from early childhood. And that was one where a child was made to think that they are not good enough, where their parents, carers, or people around them made them feel that they're not good enough. And this is something that I see happening with children today, particularly where they are introverted, where they're made to feel that because they are quiet, maybe because they're not as sociable as their peers or their siblings, that there's something wrong with them. The other scenario is where a child is put on a pedestal and they're labelled a golden child. So it might be that they were the first in their cohort to start walking, or they may be the brightest in their class, or the brightest in the family. And so that then puts a high expectation on them that they feel that they can't live up to. And so as they become older, they put a lot of pressure on themselves because they feel that they have to live up to this standard or this expectation. And then they find it challenging because they can't. And I've had clients for whom that has applied, women in their 40s who have experienced that, where they were maybe the first in their families to go to university, or they're first in their family or they were the brightest out of their siblings, and that pressure has been put on them. So thinking about your situation, can you identify where it comes from? When you first started to experience that self-doubt, that you were not good enough, that you were going to get found out, that you were not good enough, that you felt like a fraud. Because it's often those early experiences that shape how you are as an adult, and it's the beliefs that have been you developed over the years that shape how you feel. And often when you're in the minority, if you're in the minority to the dominant group, you can experience it as well. So it might be that you are a woman in a male-dominated environment. You may be a introvert in an extrovert environment. You may be a Black person in an all-white dominated environment. Then you're more likely to experience it when you're in the minority to the dominant group as well. So what can you do to overcome it? And that's the thing, is you may experience it, but it is manageable. So we've got someone here on Facebook who said that they are the golden child. So thank you for sharing that. So my experience, I was promoted from a junior leadership position to a senior leadership position over a short space of time. So this was going back a few years before I started my coaching business. And I was suddenly put into this big role which I found a bit overwhelming about what it was that I need to do. And I kept thinking to myself, oh, they're going to realize that they've made a mistake, that I'm not actually good enough to do this. They're going to find out, and any day I'm going to get an email or a phone call to say, look, Carol, really sorry, but we made a mistake. We shouldn't have given you the promotion. But because of the work that I've done on my self-development over the years, I'm quite self-aware. And so I recognized that I was actually self-sabotaging. And so I said to myself, what is it about this role that I'm finding challenging? And what is it about it that why I feel as if I'm not good enough for it? And so I sat down and I sort of analysed what was going on, reflected on what was going on, and I recognised that the two aspects of my role that I was struggling with. One of them was the budget responsibility that I had now and the management of the budget, and also the health and safety responsibilities that I had for, I now had 4 business units, 4 buildings, and I was responsible for all the people that came into those buildings. And I'd recently done some training. This was when the Corporate Homicide Act came in, and I'd recently done some training. And as a senior responsible person, I was told at this training that if anybody came into one of my buildings and there was, say they were contractors on site, they had an accident and they died, I could be held liable for corporate homicide. And so that then put a lot of pressure on me, thinking, oh, I need to know everything in order to prevent this from happening. And so once I'd pinpointed those 2 specific areas that I was struggling with, I was then able to get the support that I needed to bring myself up to speed, and so that I had a full understanding of what my responsibility was, and how to deliver on it. So rather than writing myself off, I identified what it was that I needed to do. And so what I would say to you is, if you're in a new role, or if you've been put into a bigger role, or even if you're in your existing role and you're doubting yourself whether you're good enough, look at the role and identify if there is anything specific that you are struggling with. And if there is, identify what support you can get in order to bring yourself up to speed, so that you feel that you are confident in delivering what it is that you need to deliver. And whilst I'm talking about this, it's all about as well is how you look at the situation and the perspective that you have and how you frame the situation. So taking my example, where I looked at the situation initially that I've been promoted into this big role, I don't feel confident in it because I'm struggling. I think I'm struggling, and people are going to think that I'm not good enough. And that is quite an irrational way of looking at it. And once I was able to do that self-reflection and look at it more rationally, I was able to reframe it and say, well, I can do the majority of the role, but there are just 2 aspects of the role that I'm struggling with. And by putting it into perspective that way, that helped to change how I felt about it. And I was able to clearly see the solution and get the support that I needed. And so using another example, and this is an example of a client of mine who got promoted, and she felt out of depth in her new role. And she thought that she wasn't good enough, that people were going to realize that she wasn't good enough to do the job. And she felt like an imposter. She felt like a fraud. And so what I did was I challenged her on her beliefs about herself and the role that she was in. And rather than her thinking that she wasn't really good enough for it, and that she wasn't really the best person, that she got it by luck, because that's something that often happens with imposter syndrome. You don't necessarily believe in your own abilities, and you often can think that you got there by luck, that you got the position by luck. So what I did was I asked her to talk me through the process of what she'd been through to get to where she was. And so she told me about how she'd applied to the role, she'd been interviewed, and how the interview had gone. And by going through it and looking at it in that way, she was able to see that she was deemed the best person for the job. And so with that, looking at it from that best perspective and understanding that she was the best person for the role, that helped to change how she believed. And I got her to do an exercise. And so I said to her that if she's thinking that they've made a mistake, then write a letter to them telling them that they've made a mistake, and then setting out how, and also to set out in her letter why she felt they made a mistake, and then also to write what she would see as their response. And so that's what she did. She wrote this letter. She didn't send it to them, of course, but said that she felt that they made a mistake. They shouldn't have appointed her to the role. And then when she wrote the response, when she sort of looked at it from a rational perspective, her response was, we've been recruiting and doing recruitment and selection panels, interviews for many years. We know what we're looking for. You were the best person for the role, and that is why you've got the role. And by looking at it from that perspective, that helped her to reframe how she saw the situation. And in doing so, it changed how she felt about it. And by changing what she felt and changing her beliefs, it changed how she felt. And that helped her to manage that self-doubt. So thinking about your situation, what is it about your situation? What would be a more helpful perspective to you for you to have on your situation? And using the two examples that I've given, what can you do to get either the support that you need or to rationalize and reframe your situation? And so if you've got any questions, please do type them in the comments. I'm not seeing any comments. I normally see the comments come through. This is the first time I've actually set up the live in this format. So I'm not sure if there is a problem with comments coming through. So do send your comments. If you've got any comments, then do type them and I will read them out. If you've got any questions, then read them out and I will respond. If I don't get to see the comments coming through, I will have a check after and go through them. So just to summarize what I've said. So imposter syndrome, it's a form of chronic self-doubt. It stems often from early childhood experiences where you've been made to feel that you're not good enough, or you've been labeled the golden child, and you've been put on a pedestal, and then you find it hard to live up to those expectations. And then as we become an adult, we then put a lot of pressure on ourselves to either feel that we have to live to a certain expectation or a certain standard, or we doubt ourselves as to whether we're good enough. And you're more likely to experience it when you're in the minority to the dominant group than if you are not. And so in order to manage it, it's being aware of it and looking at your beliefs about yourself and about what it is that you're doing and what it is that you need to do, and challenging those beliefs and reframing them. And once you can do that, if you change what you think and believe about it, that will help to change how you feel. And some practical things that you can do are, like what I did, looking at my role, what it was that I found challenging, and pinpointing the specifics rather than writing myself off, and pinpoint the specifics of what it is that you're finding challenging, what it is that you're struggling with, and getting the support to bring you up to speed. Or the other situation that I gave was writing a letter, not sending it, but just writing down why you think that you're a fraud, why you think that someone's made a mistake in appointing you, promoting you, and then writing down what you think their response would be. If you were to look at the situation rationally, what would be their response? And that will help to reframe it and to change how you think and feel. And you may manage it this time, and then something comes along, further down the line, and you experience it again. When you go on to your next adventure or your next promotion, it may rear its head again because you find yourself out of your depth in an overwhelming situation. But if you remember the techniques that you've put into place now and apply them in the future, it will enable you to manage it in the future. So I've got a comment here from KY Smith. Good morning, Carol. That is some amazing information. Thank you. She's going to be on my podcast. I'm interviewing her for my podcast this week, so I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Merjit has said she likes the exercise. Writing is a therapeutic tool. So has anybody got any questions, then please do type them in the comments and I will answer them. And whilst I'm waiting to see if any come through, what are you going to do about your situation? And that's my challenge to you. What are you going to do differently as a result of listening to this very, very brief session today? What are you going to do differently? And then please type in the comments and let me know. And if you do need further support, then send me a direct message and then we can arrange to have a chat. And if you're not a member of my High Achieving Introverted Women Facebook group, then do come and find us on Facebook. Or if you want to join the LinkedIn group for High Achieving Introverted Women who are senior leaders, then find us on LinkedIn. And if you want to look at how you can improve your confidence, influence, and impact, if you go to aboundingsolutions.com, I have a free assessment on my website that you can take. And also, please type in the comments if there's any particular topics that you would like me to cover, anything that you would like me to do a LinkedIn Live, you'd like me to cover, then please do let me know. And if you are interested in coming on as a guest on my Quietly Visible podcast, then also type in the comments and let me know, and I'll be in touch to identify what it is, what topic we can talk about. So thank you everybody for coming on. I can't see any questions. So if there are no questions, I'll say thank you and goodbye. And I will come through and read the comments after to see if I've missed anything or if anybody comments after. So for those of you who were watching on the replay, I will periodically come back and read the comments. So thank you, Janet. I'm pleased that you've enjoyed it. Right, so goodbye, everybody. Enjoy your afternoon, those of you in the UK. Enjoy your morning for those of you who are in the US. I've got a comment from Facebook. Thank you. This was a great way to start my day. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Another thank you. All right, goodbye, everybody. No questions. So goodbye. I'll see you the next time.